Hi there. In this video, you're going to learn about ratios. Your objectives for today are to write ratios as fractions in simplest form and to learn how to simplify ratios involving measurements. First, we need to start off with what a ratio is. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. Alright, these are three different ways that you can write the same ratio. 3 to 9 can be written like this, 3 to 9, like this, 3 to 9, or like this, 3/9, or 3 over 9, right? If we can recall, this symbol, the bar symbol in a fraction, is the same thing as division, right? 3/9 is the same thing as saying 3 divided by 9, okay? 3 divided by 9 equals 3/9. So ratios can express part to part, part to whole, or whole to part relationships. In class, the ratio is 12 boys to 16 girls. So let's start with this part to part ratio. What is the ratio of boys to girls as a fraction in simplest form, and what does this mean? So 12 boys is one of the parts, and 16 girls is the other part, right? So we would do part to part, 12 boys over 16 girls. Now, how do we simplify this? 12 sixteenths. Well, we could divide each of them by 4, right? 12 divided by 4 gets you 3, and 16 divided by 4 gets you 4. So this simplified is actually 3 boys to 4 girls. This means that for every 3 boys, there are 4 girls. In class, the ratio is 12 boys to 16 girls, so we're using the same scenario again. This time, though, we're looking for a part-to-whole ratio. What is the ratio of boys to students in class as a fraction in simplest form? And what does this mean? So we have part to whole. It's saying ratio of boys to students. So how many boys are there? 12, right? And how many students are there total? Well, 12 plus 16, right? That's what we would have to do. So if we have 12 boys, the top is just going to be 12 boys, right? And if we have 12 boys plus 16 girls, how many total students is that? 28 total students. So we have 12 boys to 28 students. Now let's simplify this, right? 12 boys over 28 students simplifies to, well, let's divide by a common factor here. So we can divide 12 by 4, and we can divide 28 by 4, right? 12 divided by 4 gets you 3. 28 divided by 4 gets you 7, right? As for what does this mean? This means that 3 out of 7 students are boys in the class, okay? Or if you want to word it a different way, for every 7 students, there are 3 boys. Okay, and here is another example using the same scenario. In class, the ratio is 12 boys to 16 girls again, right? This is a whole to part ratio. So what is the ratio of students to girls as fraction in simplest form, and what does this mean? So we have a whole to part. So again, whole, what is our whole? How many students are there, right? 12 boys and 16 girls. 12 plus 16 is 28, right? And part, how many girls are there? 16. So we have 12 plus 16, right, at the top, which got us 28 students. And our part is 16. So we have 28 students and 16 girls. So if we simplify 28 over 16, right, we can divide by 4. 28 divided by 4 gets you 7. 16 divided by 4 gets you 4, right? So this means that for every group of 7 students, there are 4 girls. All right? So this is just another way to write the ratio. Okay, and here is another example. Express the ratio 12 baskets in 18 attempts. Baskets meaning you actually made the ball in the basket, right? You actually made a point or two. So express the ratio 12 baskets in 18 attempts as a fraction in simplest form. Explain its meaning. So you have 12 baskets, right? That's your part over your whole. Your whole is 18 attempts. So you have 12 baskets over 18 attempts. Simplify this fraction. Divide both the top and the bottom by 6, and you'll have 2/3. So you have 2 baskets out of every 3 attempts. In terms of what does it mean, the ratio of baskets to shots attempted is 2 to 3. This means that for every 3 shots attempted, 2 were actually made. Also, you can think of it as saying 2/3 of the shots were baskets. 10 out of every 30 Americans own an iPhone. Express this ratio as a fraction in simplest form and explain its meaning. So 10 out of 30 Americans. This looks like this is a part to whole, right? So let's write this down. 10 out of 30. Now we need to simplify it. So we can divide the top and the bottom by 10, right? 10 divided by 10 gets you 1. 30 divided by 10 gets you 3. So simplified as a fraction, it would be 1 out of 3. What does this mean? The ratio of Americans who own an iPhone is 1 to 3. This means that for every 3 Americans, 1 has an iPhone. Okay, now here's where it gets a little bit tricky when you write ratios involving measurements. So when writing a ratio involving measurements, both quantities should have the same unit of measure. Okay, so this is very important. You need to make sure that both quantities have the same unit of measure. All right, so your steps to solve a question like this would be 1, convert one of the quantities so that the units are the same. 2, write your new ratio, and 3 is simplify. So here we have this example, 8 ounces to 3 pounds. And you're given 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. Let's see how to solve that. So express the ratio 8 ounces to 3 pounds as a fraction in simplest form. If you're given this, 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. Okay, so 8 ounces over 3 pounds. Right away, I see that both of the units aren't the same, right? One is ounces and one has pounds. Notice that the two quantities of measurements are not the same units, so you need to change one so that they have the same units, right? If you go back to your steps, that's step number 1 here. Convert one of the quantities so that the units are the same. So that's what I'm going to do. Since I know that 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces, right? What is 3 pounds? 3 pounds is the same as how many ounces? That's what I'm going to solve for. If 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces, then that would mean, well, 3 pounds, right, is equal to 48 ounces. And if you don't know how to get that, you just multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. 16 times 3 is 48. Okay, so your new ratio, given ounces to ounces, right, would be 8 ounces over 48 ounces, which simplifies to 1 ounce over 6 ounces. If you just divide by 8, right? If you divide the numerator by 8 and divide the denominator by 8. Okay, so your concluding thoughts. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. You can have part to part to whole, or whole to part. Also, when you're using ratios to describe measurements, you need to make sure that when using ratios to describe measurements, make sure that both of the quantities have the same units. All right, and if they don't, just convert one of them so that it does. All right, thank you for watching the video about ratios.